Hello, everyone, and we need to talk about why Bitcoin is not going for a major retrace, why all those predictors like Gareth Soloway or DataDash and all those super bears are wrong about Bitcoin 10K, Bitcoin 12K, and why that's not happening. First of all, we gotta look at the treasury yields. The 10-year treasury yields have actually come down to about 4.5% today. And I do think they're actually gonna hold there or come down even more because Jerome Powell has initiated a bear extinction event in terms of crypto. Basically, he did not raise the interest rate anymore. And he basically kind of projected that there were not going to be any more interest rate hikes unless something unfathomable happens. Gas prices are actually coming down this month, so I expect the CPI to be quite good. So even though he's going to maintain high interest rates for another couple of months at least, there's going to be no increase in the interest rates, which means the long-term interest rate is going to come down because over 10 years, people are seeing an end to the rate hikes. And because of that, they know in the long term, the rates are coming down. So as treasury yields come down and interest rates come down, investments like crypto are going to be a lot more appealing because the ROI on things like bonds are not going to be able to keep up. People have been talking a lot about the inverted bond curve. Well, that's not going to be all that relevant anymore in the future because that's going to reverse itself. The 10-year yield is always going to come down faster than the 2-year yield because the 10-year yield is like overpriced right now because of the high interest rates we have. But as it comes down, people are going to see like 3, 4, 5 years into the future, we're going to get interest rates of 2 or 3%. So long-term wise, they're going to bring those rates down. So we will no longer have an inverted yield curve after a certain amount of time. So I think that's going to actually fix itself. The other thing is the jobs report came in today, and for the first time in a long time, we failed to meet expectations. It was projected at 170 or 180, and we only have 150. And Jerome Powell likes people to not have jobs. You know why? Because that means they can't spend as much money. Median income is also slightly down this year. So that means people don't have as much money to spend. They still have plenty of money. They just don't have as much money to spend to bring up inflation at this point. But consumer spending is still pretty high overall, which means we're not going for a total recession. So right now, the labor market is weakening, yet the labor market still remains fairly strong, which means there's still jobs available. Wage rates are increasing less than what was expected this month, but they are still increasing, which means overall the economy is still full of jobs, but maybe not as quite as red hot in terms of numbers as it actually used to be, which is perfectly fine, which is what Jerome Powell and the Fed want to see, which will actually bring down inflation. So all these reports are going into something that will actually bring down the interest rates sooner rather than later. And obviously, they don't want to keep the interest rate so high because that does inhibit economic growth, and it does actually make people actually nervous. And also, the housing costs are coming down, at least buying a house, and that's going to help with inflation as well. I don't really know how they're actually going to get rents down. I'm not really sure if they can get rents down. That's another story altogether. That rent problem is going to plague them for quite a while, honestly, and there's nothing they really can do about it. They can't really do like rent limiting or anything like that. I guess they just have to build more apartments or something, but I'm not really sure if that's really going to work at this point. But the other economic indicators are actually pretty good. The stock market did actually rally today as well. So overall, Bitcoin's decoupled a little bit from the stock market, but I think it'll actually recouple sooner or later. People are kind of using it as a hedge right now, which is very, very good news for Bitcoin, by the ways, because that just opens up another use case for Bitcoin. So right now, the economic signals are pointing in the right direction. They've basically been able to raise the interest rates around 5%. You're starting to see contractions somewhat within the economy, but it will be a pretty soft landing at this point because, like, people saw this thing coming from a far off. And even though we might get a small or slight recession at the beginning of next year, it is going to be a pretty soft landing. And the bulk of the bad stuff was over by December of last year. Like, inflation's really going to come down to like 3 point something percent, and that's well on the way to eventual 2%. We're probably not going to get 2% for a couple of years, or like a year or two at least, but I don't think the Fed is going to be in a hurry to raise rates anymore, and that's what was causing all the pain anyways. So yeah, while the Fed pivot might induce a small recession, it's not really going to be that bad as people think it is. And yes, we are going to actually have a soft landing. The bond curve will fix itself. And, the debt is, maybe problematic, like, 2 decades in the future or something. But realistically, most of that debt is owned by Americans. And they can always do stuff like raising the age of retirement for Social Security to actually mitigate that specific cost. So realistically, I do actually think that we are actually going in a very good direction for cryptocurrency, and that crypto will actually go up. And that's added to the fact that, billions of dollars have been deposited into Binance in terms of stablecoins. And that usually means that they're getting ready for some kind of buy. Because generally, if you deposit a lot of Bitcoin or Ethereum into Binance, you might actually get a sell. But if you deposit a lot of stable coins into Binance, that generally means a buy. And you know what? I bet that could be BlackRock or Fidelity getting ready to buy another big batch of Bitcoins, which definitely would push the price up. Or it's a lot of other institutional investors knowing that the ETF is going to get passed very, very soon, and they want to buy up as well. So you have that as well. And the whale watchers, they've been tracking movements, and they've confirmed a lot of USDT and USDC going into Binance. So that could be another precursor of another big leg up. And we'll just have to wait to see about that. But with all these factors and the economic factors, I just don't really see us going into a giant crypto winter again. There's going to be ups and downs, but like the thoughts of like 10, 15K, I think those are out the window. I don't think we're going to fall below 20K again at this point, unless we have another big fallout. Now, there is a little bit of a worry because USDT and USDC are slightly depegging. I don't think it's anything serious. USDT is at 99.6. USDC's at 99.4, so about 0.5%. I think they will pretty much jog back to 1. I think the volatility in the market has led to a slight depeg. If you look at the stable coins, all of them are slightly depegged. I don't think it's a big deal, but it is something that we have to keep a watch over. The other thing that could actually that could help with a bull run is the SEC is filing for summary judgment against Terra Luna. Now, I think everyone thought that Terra would actually be guilty, but there's a reason that the SEC is doing this, and it's not because it's an easy win for the SEC. Actually, I think it's the opposite. Remember a couple of days ago, Terra Luna actually filed for dismissal of their case against the SEC because the SEC has provided very little, if any, evidence that Tera Luna was selling illegal securities. And the SEC does not want their case dismissed, so they want the judge to provide a summary judgment of Tera Luna without a trial. But the thing is, they might easily lose the summary judgment, and that's mostly because they don't really have much evidence against Do Kwon and Tera Luna. And like I've explained, I'm low-key on Team Do Kwon for this one because I don't want the SEC to win this case, because if they lose this case and they can't prove that Tera Luna is a security, they're very, very likely to lose the Coinbase case as well. If they can't prove that Tera Luna is a security, they can't prove that anything is a security at this point. So it would be another black mark against the SEC, and they really, really don't want the case dismissed, which is probably why they're pushing for summary judgment. But I think there is a good chance to lose this. This is not like the SBF case. They had mountains and mountains and mountains of evidence against the SBF case. Against Tera Luna, there essentially is they don't really have much evidence at all, and that's why they filed for dismissal. I think they were just stalling this case for a very, very long time, a year and a half, and now they don't really want a trial, because if they go to a trial case and they show the jury no evidence, I feel like they're just going to get pwned more than ever. So the summary judgment against Tera Luna, I think that's kind of like a sign of SEC desperation as well. Because we all thought that Terra Luna was like low-hanging fruit. But it turns out the low-hanging fruit is getting pretty hard for the SEC to pick, and obviously like they don't want their case dismissed. So if that case gets dismissed, then altcoins are going to start to rise up, I think, because the Coinbase case is probably also going to get dismissed. So the consecutive L's by the SEC against crypto companies and the crypto industries is also pumping it up. So, like right now, it does not seem like we're going to go into a bull market. I think there's going to be a bear extinction event soon. And people who took shorts are probably going to be hurting for a long time, especially people who took shorts at below $30,000. They're probably already wrecked. But if they haven't been wrecked already and they're still doing leverage, they're going to be wrecked very, very soon. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.